could I please request you to like and subscribe to my channel? Thank you. So, in the last session, we did talk about the real, the unreal, the self. So, we move on to stanza 14. Both stanza 14 and 15, actually, for the next lot of verses, stanzas, it is a repetition of the same concept. Ved Vyasa through Krishna is repeating the same thing again and again. In 14 and 15, Krishna tells Arjun that the contact between the senses and sense objects gives rise to fleeting perceptions of happiness and distress. These are non permanent and come and go like winter and summer seasons. O descendant of Bharat, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Carries on to say, O Arjun, noblest amongst men, that person who is not affected by happiness and distress and remains steady in both becomes eligible for liberation. Firstly, here Krishna has addressed Arjun as the son of Bharat. Basically, what he's trying to do is remind Arjun about his lineage, about the beauty of the illustrious lineage that he comes from, to jolt him out of his un-Aryan behavior and move him towards the path of behavior which is more suited to his ancestry. Krishna explains the basic fact of life to Arjun, that the only constant is change. Once we understand the phrase, this too shall pass, nothing is constant. Everything in life comes in pairs. He explains the duality of life. If you have grief, you have joy. If you have day, you have night. There's cold, there is hot. There is positive, there is negative. Everything in life is about duality. When we understand the duality, only then can we rise above that duality to move towards the path of singularity, which is Advaita Vedanta. So, what we have to learn is, though we live in a life which is dual, everything in life is duality. Inside us, we have positive energy, we have negative energy. In fact, the world got created with the duality, the Big Bang Theory. There was a combustion of positive with negative, they combusted, there was a bang, and life was created. Duality, part and parcel of everything we do in life. If there's a smile, there's a frown. If there's happiness, there is grief. There is duality in just about every aspect. Look around you. Everything in life will come in pairs of opposites. That is the duality. Krishna is trying to move Arjun to understand, because to understand singularity, first you have to come to terms with the duality of life. What he is trying to explain to Arjun is that you should bear all pairs of opposites patiently and develop a balanced state of mind. To understand, if you're going through grief, this too shall pass. Similarly, if there's joy, this too shall pass. The same way as the darkest or deepest of nights passes, there is a day the next morning. The sun does rise the next morning. The night too shall pass. What we need to understand is our reactions to one part of the duality. They're nothing but mental reactions, they are emotions. We don't like negativity, we get scared of negativity, there's fear. With grief, there is a lot of pain, there's a lot of sorrow, emotions. If we learn to become an observer of these emotions rather than become one with them, if we stop identifying with the emotions, we become a third party witness to them. It allows us poise and balance. It allows us to distance ourselves from this affinity to what we are going through, the circumstances we are going through. And the more we identify with the soul is permanent, not affected by the vagaries of life, not affected by the changes, understands that the only constant is change. The soul does not get affected with agreeable or disagreeable conditions of life. It is not attached. It has no aversion to grief or an attachment to joy. What he's trying to explain is when we contemplate or we brood on the object of the senses. Objects of the senses are what we experience through our eyes, nose, ears, mouth, skin. It's experiences that we are going through that leads to attachment. Attachment leads to desire. Desire leads to anger. Anger leads to delusion. Delusion leads to loss of reason. And finally, loss of reason leads to utter ruin. This is exactly what happened to Arjun. He came to a standstill. He came to a point where he, depending on the choice he takes, if he allows his delusions to corrode what he's supposed to be doing, he will destroy himself because he will not do what he is supposed to be doing. Once again, repetitively, and you will find that a lot of the concepts are going to be repetitive because Ved Vyas through Krishna is trying to hammer in a point. He's trying to explain the Vedantic philosophy, which is very deep and very intense. He says we do not perceive by the sense organs but through them. It is, and I have explained this in, I think, the first session we had. When the sense organs send a stimuli to the brain, so what I see, what I hear, what I taste, what I sense, what I feel, sends a message to the brain where there's a reaction, and depending on the mindset at that moment, there will be an experience or an emotion. So objects are not perceived by the sense organs but through them. A very important part of the Vedantic philosophy, which also teaches you how to back away, that it is only when we perceive through the sense organs, and it is only when we send that stimuli to the brain is when there is a reaction. If we understand we are only observers, if we are only watching, we are not sending that stimuli to the brain, there is no emotion, there is no attachment, there is nothing. So no stimuli is sent to the brain, which means in any situation we will act and not react. We also need to understand that the same object can give two very different experiences to two individuals. The same mango, give one half to one person and the other half to another person. The first person, person A, will love the mango. He's loved it, loves the taste, loves the flavor, loves the texture, loves everything about it. Person B hates the mango. The object is the same. Two people, same time, same object, totally different reactions to it. We have reactions depending on our stored memories. It is possible that person B, who was given the mango, has had a bad experience with the mango. He probably got a rotten mango or something that was really foul, or there were worms in the mango, it was overripe, and that is the memory he carries. So when he eats the mango, he is adding all the what the sense organs are perceiving, sending the stimuli to the brain, which is collaborating with data already existing in the brain and saying, no, we've had a bad mango, it had worms crawling out of it, we don't like mango. Two people, same fruit, different experiences. Cold can be pleasant at one time, unpleasant at another. When we are in summer, we love the cold of the AC because it cools us down. But the same cold in the winter, we will hate because we freeze. The sense organs that give rise to the feelings of heat and cold, pleasure and pain, favorable and unfavorable experiences will come and go. They are impermanent in nature. They give pleasure at one moment and pain at another. Also, as we grow, The same thing that could give us pleasure at one time when we were 20. We loved eating chaat, we loved eating spicy food, we loved eating street food. That same food at 50 could give a lot of pain in terms of acidity, gastroenteritis, probably diarrhea, something, because our body constitutions cannot take it anymore. This is what Krishna is trying to explain to you. Anitya. Anitya literally means the same object that gives us pleasure at one time is now a source of pain. Very simple example to this to understand this. Parents, and all parents I think can relate to this. The same children who were such a source of pleasure in the infancy can be the reason for all the gray hair in their teenage. They could be the reason for you going bald because you're pulling your hair out because of what they're doing. The same thing can give pleasure at one time, pain at another. To get attached, to become so one with these objects which our sense organs are giving to us or sending the stimuli, is what Krishna is saying, is what we should not be doing. The same way, this is what he says, that a person who understands the finite nature of things is not affected by the circumstances and vagaries of life, and that person will attain immortality. To attain immortality, we have to go to the path of singularity. To attain singularity, we have to understand duality. Once we understand duality, we can step back and not get affected. The person who remains unchanged in pain and pleasure, who's not disturbed by circumstances, is the person who would attain that immortality. The power of endurance of pairs of opposites does not mean a meek submission. It does not mean that a person sits down holding their head like this and saying, oh, this is the will of God, I don't know what to do, or given. It's not a defeatist attitude. No way is Vedanta propagating a defeatist attitude. What it is saying is to be detached, to be unmoved. Whether it's pain, it should not affect the core of you, the soul of you. Basically, let me completely simplify this. What Vedanta's preaching is, we need to understand duality. Understanding duality doesn't mean we are not going to have that instant emotional response. Yes, we will. Somebody hits me on my hand, I am going to do an ouch. There is instant pain. But am I going to allow that pain to disturb the center of my being? Am I going to allow it to affect me to the point of bringing me to a standstill? That is what Vedantic way of life is trying to explain to you. Understand duality. This too shall pass. The same way a happy moment does not last forever, it passes. Grief is not going to last forever. It too is going to pass. It is going to move on. Nothing is going to stay constant. The only constant is change. Life is going to throw curveballs at you. It is going to throw straight balls at you. The true state of a person shows when they deal with the curveballs of life with the same equanimity as the straight ones. That means you're dealing with it with the same poise, with the same, endurance. Both are the same. There's no difference because both are going to pass exactly the same way. That person becomes fit for attaining immortality or knowledge, the ultimate goal of life. Basically, what does immortality mean? It means the infinite experience of the eternal and the permanent, singularity, moving away from the duality. It does not mean survival of death. It means transcendence of life and death. That means we've gone above the cycle of life and death, because we know life is impermanent, we know death is impermanent, we know there's a continuity, and we've risen above both. Krishna continues from stanza 16 right up to stanza 22. In the same vein, he repeats the unreal has no existence. The real will never cease to be. He explains further that to know that, that means the soul to be indestructible. Nobody can cause that, the soul, to be to destroy it. It is indestructible, it is imperishable. He explains that if we look at that Atma, that soul, that self that is inside us, it cannot be slain, it cannot be killed. The soul inside me cannot kill you, the soul inside you. The soul can neither be killed nor can you kill it, either which way. And he goes on and on saying that just as a man casts off his worn out clothes and puts on new ones, the same way the self, the soul, casts off its worn body and enters a body that is new. And this is the cycle that goes on and on. Once again, Ved Vyasa through Krishna is repeating himself. He does repeat himself right from stanza 16 to 22, the importance of the concept of real and unreal. The problem with most of us is we get so bogged down with grief, we get bogged down with pain, we get bogged down with circumstances, we get bogged down with things happening around us because we do not understand the differentiation between the real and the unreal. If we could understand that, you would feel the emotion, but it would not bring you to a standstill, because you will be able to rationalize it. You will be able to take a third party observer view of it, stand outside and say, this too shall pass. It's such a beautiful statement. This too shall pass. The number of times I've used it in my life is not even funny. And believe you me, it has got me through physical pain, it has got me through mental pain, it has got me through very tough situations. There was a time last year, and I think October or November, I had a major accident. My entire left side was wrenched. I was swollen from literally my neck down to my foot. I was in pain, the kind of pain where childbirth seemed to be very easy compared to the kind of pain I was in. And I remember it was in the midst of COVID, did not want to go to a doctor, did not want to go to a hospital. And I remember no painkiller worked, nothing was working. I was in agony. And I have literally passed the night with this one statement: this too shall pass. And it did. Next morning, the pain was better. I was not in the same kind of agony, and this is physical. The same thing I've applied thousands and thousands of times to emotional hurts, when there's a fight with somebody, when you're really upset, or let's say you've had a really bad battle with, maybe if I've had a battle with my son or my daughter, and I'm like, my heart is broken, they've said something that's really upset me. But fact of the matter is, this too shall pass. It does. You make up, you make amends, you sort out what you did that was not correct, and you move on with life. This too shall pass. It is my mantra for life, and I think it'll be my mantra for life till the day I die. I don't think it'll ever change. One of the reasons why Ved Vyasa is repeating the whole concept again and again and again, to remember something, there are two laws to memory. One is to remember by association. Try it. Anytime you want to remember something, associate that with something funny, something hilarious. You will never forget it. The other way to remember something, anything, is repetition, which we've all learned in school. You take a book, you repeat it again and again and again, you mug it up, ratta maro as we used to call it, and it gets embedded in memory. Ved Vyasa is doing exactly that to us by repeating the concepts again and again and again. He is hoping and praying that some of it gets embedded in our memories and we actually start leading the Vedic way of life. The reason for all of us to lead that way of life, if any of you have ever questioned why is it so important, because it is the way of life where we can lead life as better human beings, better for ourselves, not the world. Who cares about the world? Better for us, better for our soul, better for our growth, better for our evolution, and we are not as affected by the vagaries of life. If we learn the Vedantic way of life, we would be able to deal with whatever life throws out at us in a far better, less traumatic way. And that leads to a happier person, a happier life. If everybody around us, including ourselves, led life like this, we would all be happy. We would stop creating those negative energies, which creates, negative has a way of growing. Negative grows 1 is to 100. Positive just grows 1 is to 10. Every time we allow the vagaries of life to disturb us, we create a negative emotion, which sends out a negative vibration, which, can you imagine millions of people on this earth sending out that negative emotion? What a negative wave we are creating. And then everybody talks about negativity coming from a solar eclipse or from a lunar eclipse. Believe you me, there is no negativity coming out from any of these, as the negative energy that we create by our thoughts, by our emotions, by our intent. If we actually learn to follow the Vedic way of life, a lot of that would stop. We would be calmer, we would be more peaceful, and definitely better rounded human beings. I am not going to say I have applied every logic of the Vedantic way to my life. I do try. I try it to a very large extent. Yes, I fail. I'm human. I am going to fail. As is anybody who's born a human. Even God, when he's born a human, makes his own share of mistakes. I'm okay with the mistakes. The beauty is I'm okay with those mistakes. They don't bother me as much. They don't disturb me as much. That is what happens with the understanding. And what I do try very hard to do, and I think I've achieved it more often than not, is not to apply emotions to things that bother me. So somebody says something that's very hurtful, I will talk about it, I will vent about it, I will get it out of my system, but I will not allow the emotion to seep into the core of my being, because that is when I start becoming an unhappy human being. So all of us can take these little steps to allow the Vedantic way of life to become a way of life for us. Small steps, baby steps, very doable steps. Coming back to this, Krishna says, the real is that which does not change. It remains the same in all periods of time, past, present, and future. It always is. And this is something we have understood. The real, the soul, is always there. It doesn't change. The unreal is something that does not stay the same for two successive moments. From 2 seconds back to today, to right now, 2 seconds, things have changed. What I spoke has changed. The way I spoke that has changed. What you heard has changed. The way you heard it has changed. It's not real. This is the unreal because it is changing. Any object that is conditioned by the law of cause and effect is not completely real, because every effect is a change brought by a cause, and a cause is temporary. Something tickles my nose, I sneeze. It's a sneeze. It's come, it's gone. What tickled my nose has come, it's gone. It's not real. It's just something that happened in that instant and it is gone. The body itself changes with every moment. The mind evolves. The intellect grows with the passage of time. Each change in the body, when we go from childhood to youth, childhood has to die for us to come into youth. Hence, it's not static, it is not permanent. Childhood is not permanent. Infancy is not permanent. Youth is not permanent. This body is not permanent. And that is what he is trying to explain. This entire universe that we've created around us is not permanent. It is unreal. The real is something that is pure awareness. It is consciousness. It is that soul within us. When we go deep within us, what we call the subconscious, the deep conscious, the super consciousness, that is the real, because that is constant, never changing, and does go from one body to another. It is eternal, all pervading, unborn, and undying. It's just changing clothes, one body to another. This is the soul, the Atma that he is thinking, what he is talking about. Krishna is through all of this explaining to Arjun that you're grieving over thinking that all these warriors, your cousins, your friends, your relatives are going to die, but none of them are going to die, because all that is going to go is the body. That is it. That soul is never going to die, which is why it is unwise to grieve. He says, to explain it again, take a glass. It could be made of glass, it could be made of stainless steel, it could be made of copper, it could be made of mud, it could be made of any ceramic, it could be made of any material, it could be in any shape, it could be tall, it could be small, it could be a shot glass, it could be a snifter. Pour water into it. The water will stay static. It is water. It will never lose its. The water will take on the form of the container it's poured into, but will always remain water. Even though it takes on the shape of the container, it may even take on the hue of the container, but it will stay water. That is the soul. Irrespective of what body it inhabits, the soul will always stay the same. The soul is imperishable, the body is perishable, and in fact, the body is dying every day. We all are aware of it. As knowledge, as intellect tells us, from the moment we are born, the decay has already started. From our first breath, there is going to be a last breath. That is an inevitable. It is a given. And this is what he is explaining. When you know this is inevitable, why are you grieving over something that is perishable? Krishna, right through the Gita, does not command Arjun to fight or take up arms or do battle. That is not the Vedanta way. That is not the Vedic way. It is exactly the same way as when you go into therapy, you go sit with a counselor. A counselor will never tell the client what to do or what not to do. The counselor's job is to show the client various paths, varied options. The choice of what path to follow is always the client's. Krishna is showing Arjun the path to dharma. To follow or not is his choice. Arjun, according to the Kshatriya, the warrior code, or the Kshatriya dharam, has come to the battlefield to fight. That is his code of honor. That is what he's supposed to be doing. Krishna yet is not telling him what to do. He is just explaining fundamental principles to Arjun. The choice of what to do or not to do is always going to be Arjun's. Had it not been Arjun's choice, how easy was it for Krishna to take up arms? Had he taken up arms, the battle would have been over in 1 second. He just had to, send that Sudarshan Chakra, just swirl it around it, everybody would have gone. He didn't do that. That is not the Vedantic way. The Vedantic way is to bring people to a point of understanding and then let them take the choice of what to do is right or wrong. Another beautiful thing that is explained by what Krishna did in the Gita. Krishna counseled Arjun. He himself did not take action. We all need to understand that God up there, whatever our belief structure, for him we are not puppets. He doesn't put us on this earth with strings saying, oh, if I pull this string, let's see what happens. If I pull that string, what happens? No. When we are born, when a soul is born and a soul takes birth on earth, it has what is called free will. This is a new age word coined, set of words coined, so called in the new age, but it's actually reflected so beautifully in the Gita. It's reflected in the Mahabharat. Krishna, being God, being an avatar of God, could easily have taken steps to do whatever was needed to have been done. Destroy the Adharm, stop everything. He could have done all of that. When Draupadi, as the wife of the five Pandavas, was called into the court with Dhritarashtra, Bhishma Pitama, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, everybody sitting there, and Dushasan tried to remove her clothes. Krishna prevented that from happening out of respect for that lady. At that time itself, he could have killed everybody. Height of Adharma, but he did not do that. God does not do that. The choices we make are the choices we make. What action we take is the action we take. Please remember, and this is such a major lesson as an undercurrent right through the Gita. We are not puppets of God. So let's stop the blame game. Oh, it's kismat. Oh, it was, God's will. No, there was some action that we took that brought us to the point that we have come to. Beautifully explained without having been said. Not a word of this is said in the Gita, but it's the undercurrent of the entire discourse of Gita, where Krishna is not telling Arjun what to do. All he's giving is a lot of knowledge to Arjun. The choice of what to do is Arjun's. Krishna does not take the choice for him, does not force a choice on him, neither does Krishna act on behalf of Arjun. None of the above. The choice is Arjun's, the decision is Arjun's. It is up to Arjun what he decides to do, battle or not. Krishna's job, the role, was just to give knowledge. No more and no less. So we all also should take accountability of our lives into our own hands. We are responsible for what we go through. There's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of knowledge given through books, through discourses, through sessions, through our own intellect, our own power of intellect. We all have tremendous knowledge we are not even aware of, past lives of knowledge that we're carrying forward to this life. Use all of that. That is knowledge to us. Remember, I told you in one of the earlier sessions, knowledge in itself is useless unless we know what knowledge to use at what time. Use that knowledge, your steps will be correct. That is the Vedanta way of life. Krishna tells Arjun, discard the defeatist mentality. Face wholeheartedly and sincerely all the situations that are in front of you. Whatever activity you're doing, whatever situation you're into, be here in the now, the present, in the here and the now, and do what is required of you at that moment of time. This is something else that Ved Vyasa, through Krishna, explains so beautifully. Right now, at this moment of time, be here in the here and now. Be present in the exact moment you are in, because this moment is going to pass. It's already passed. This moment went. If you are not in the here and now, you will not be able to deal or face the situations that you're dealing with, which was also Arjun's predicament. He went into a lot of delusion because he did not face the moment in the here and now. If he had faced that moment in the here and now, he would have gone into battle. That is what he had come into the battlefield for. It was all predictated. The Pandavas knew there's a battle happening. Arjun knew he had to battle. He went into the center of the battlefield. He should have fought the battle. He did not live in the here and now. He did a lot of theory, a lot of intellectualizing, a lot of stuff. Gave rise to a lot of push and pulls, brought himself to a point of standstill, which is what a lot of us do to ourselves. Just be in the present, in the here and now, and life does become a lot smoother, a lot simpler. Once again, Krishna says that that person who thinks I slay or I am slain or I am slain does not comprehend the true nature of the self. The self is indestructible. It exists in all periods of time, past, present, and the future. The physical body is going to undergo inevitable changes, but the self is not affected by it. He says the self, the soul does not get born, does not grow, does not transform, does not decay, does not die. It is imperishable. It is the real. The unreal is something which will be born, which will grow, which will transform, which will decay, and will die. Since the soul does none of these, it is imperishable, it is changeless, it is eternal. At the point of being very repetitive, Ved Vyasa once again says through Krishna that birth and death are only for the physical bodies. They cannot touch the immortal soul. Just as when a wave rises and falls back into the ocean, it rises from the ocean, falls back into the ocean. The body is the wave, the ocean is the soul. Not changing. The ocean is not affected by the wave rising or the wave falling. The ocean stays constant. That is exactly what we are. The soul is the ocean, the waves are the body. So he says, Arjun, do not grieve. An enlightened person who understands the indestructibility of the soul does not grieve, does not use words the how can I slay? You are not the slayer. How can I kill the people you're killing? They are not dying. Their soul is indestructible. A body is made up of the gross physical body the way we see it. And then it has the subtle and the casual bodies. All these together with the soul is what forms the one body. Krishna explains this. Just as an individual person gives up worn out or old clothing and takes up new ones, similarly, the same soul gives up the worn out, the old body, and takes on a new body. By giving up one body or giving up one set of clothes, you do not change. Similarly, giving up one body, taking another body, you do not change. But the soul adds on karma, and it adds on the knowledge, the life lessons, the challenges it has faced, what it has learned, grown, and evolved with, and it carries this on. This is what it carries on to the next body. When the soul takes on a new body, it takes on a body that is more suited to the fulfillment of its natural tendencies and dispositions and the karma it carries. To explain this further, when we are going through this life, there is the soul. My soul, born, has chosen this body for these experiences. All that I'm experiencing in this body, my soul has learned, it's absorbed, it's taken on all the karma I've accrued. And I was explaining this right in the beginning. We accrue karma according to the emotions we attach to what we are going through. If we attach a lot of negative emotions, we will accrue negative karma. If we attach a lot of positive emotions, we will accrue positive karma. That karma, along with what we've learned, the life lessons we face, the challenges that we faced, is what we will take with us into the life between life period. We will sit down, we will introspect about what we've learned. We will then further decide on our soul path what is the next life we need to take, what is the next step we need to do, and depending on the karma, which becomes the modifier in this case, we choose the next body. We choose what is the next birth we have to take, and we go ahead, take that. Something very important that I need all of you to understand: in every lifetime, the soul chooses certain challenges that it needs to face. When we were given those challenges, they are also modified depending on the karma. If we haven't learned our last lifetime's challenges or last lifetime's life lessons, we will face them again in the next life. The first time we face them, they will be easy. If we don't learn from them, we will go through a second cycle which will be tougher. Still don't learn our lessons from it. We go through a third cycle, and by the time we go to the third or the fourth cycle, we are likely to be given a tight slap in the form of it being so tough. So go review your lives. If you've gone through cyclic circumstances again and again and again, this is a lesson you need to learn or a challenge you need to face. The faster you learn the lesson, the faster you face that challenge, it will go away. That period will go away. It only comes back repeatedly because it's not a lesson we've learned, it is not a challenge that we faced. The moment we face it, it goes away. Moment means it's not instantaneous that it goes away. It could take a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever the time frame. It does go away. And that is our soul journey. So lifetime to lifetime, we move on in our soul journey, changing body after body after body to face life's lessons, learn those lessons, face the challenges that will help us evolve and grow, the soul to evolve and grow. Ultimately, what we are doing is we're moving towards the path of moksha. To reach the path of moksha, which is complete enlightenment, which is freedom, duality of life, life, death, duality, two opposites, to get freedom from that duality, we have to come to a point of singularity. Every challenge we face, every lesson we learn, takes us one step further towards that point of singularity, which is the Advait Vedanta. And that is where we all want to try and get to. That is where we want to reach. Once we reach that, we actually get that enlightenment and we literally stop the cycle of life and death, the biggest duality in our lives: life, death, born, die, the biggest duality we have to face. This is what we need to learn. And guys, this at this stage is where I stop this session to do a recap of the session that we've done. Life is full of dualities. Everything in our life is full of dualities. The way I said, life and death in itself are the two biggest dualities we face: happiness, sorrow, day, night, grief, joy, smile, frown, name it. Everything in life comes in pairs, it comes in duality. To come to a point of singularity, singularity is oneness. There is a lot about singularity. We'll talk about it as we go on. But to come that singularity even within us, the singularity on the outside, the singularity on the inside. Inside the singularity is the mating of the male and female energies to become what is called the Ardhnareshwar, half man, half woman, mating of the two energies. It's not that you're literally going to take half the body of a man and half the body of a woman and put it together. That's not true. We have male energies inside us, we have female energies inside us. When we mate the two, a combustion happens and it becomes one single flow of energy. That is singularity. It is only when we come to a point of singularity can we merge back with the maker. While we live in duality, we can't. But to come to a point of singularity, we have to first understand duality. Very important message that is coming through the Gita.